Hello, I'm John Melville, and I'm going to talk to you today about one of my favorite devices that we have here at Vernier, the SpectroVis Plus. This is our little array spectrometer, which can also be used as a fluorometer. And I'm going to be talking to you today about how you can actually use it as a fluorometer. Now, what a fluorometer is a way to use a device to look at what we call fluorescence. And there are several different compounds that fluoresce. Chlorophyll is one compound that fluoresces. It glows a nice bright red. You may not know this, but all scorpions fluoresce when they are when you shine a UV light on them. So I have a little extraction from some scorpion cuticle. And then you may have heard of this other compound. It's actually a protein called GFP, which stands for green fluorescent protein. And this is derived from a protein from jellyfish that is now used. It's a really important protein that's used in biotechnology, the biomedical industry, as a marker. And you can actually show that GFP also fluoresces bright green using our little spectrometer. Now, the way that you actually use this device to show fluorescence is, instead of using the normal light source, this normal white light source for absorbance, we're going to be using one of two LEDs. On the device there is this purple LED, which means it's at about 405 nanometers. That's where it's centered at. And then we also have a green LED up here, which is centered at around 505. I'm going to be using this little purple LED at 405 because that's the best to make chlorophyll fluoresce, or basically glow, scorpion cuticle glow, and then this special type of GFP called UV GFP. Now, to set the device up to measure fluorescence, I have to change the units on the device. I actually have to change the mode. So I'm going to tap here on the meter screen, and I'm going to go to Change Units, and I'm going to select Fluorescence 405. And now if you were to look down inside this little spectrometer, you would see that there's a little purple LED that's on. Now, one of the reasons why I love this little spectrometer so much is that I can actually see the entire fluorescence spectra of a compound. That means I can see whether it's emitting light in the purple all the way out to the red. So let's take a look here at chlorophyll. I'm going to put the chlorophyll in here. And if you were to look down into the device, you could see that it's glowing a little bit red. So we should see some fluorescence in the red. Now, another nice thing about fluorescence is you don't have to do any type of calibration. You just take the sample, put it into the spectrometer, and then just hit collect. And there is the action spectra, the fluorescence spectra from chlorophyll. And you can see that there's this nice peak here in the red. Now, there's a really nice trick here with our spectrometer. If you don't want to see this rainbow background, or if you just want to see it as a little strip, all that you have to do is double-click near the top of the screen. That's what I'm going to do right here. So now you can see there's this nice peak. It's not emitting any light in the blue. It's only emitting light in the red, right in there. Now you can see that this is at about 0.6, what we call relative fluorescence units. I can actually change the size of this peak by going back to the meter screen and changing something that we call the sample time. Now, you only want to change the sample time if you're in fluorescence mode. You would never want to do this if you were using this device as an absorbance spectrometer. To change the sample time, you just go over here to where it says Mode, and you change this number here that says sample time. And you can increase it to make the peak larger or decrease it to make the peak smaller. To really see a nice peak, you want the fluorescence peak to be at about 0.8 or 0.9 relative units. So I'm just going to increase this to a 100. I'm going to select OK. And then I'm going to hit play. And I'm going to store my latest run. And there we go. I'm going to hit stop. And now you see we have a nice peak. It's at about 0.804, nice shape. And if I wanted to make this peak smaller, let's say I had too much chlorophyll in this little cuvette, and it was just overriding the spectrometer, I could decrease the sample time to make the peak smaller so I could actually see what it actually really looks like. Now there are lots of other compounds that fluoresce, so I'm just going to store this run. Let's take a look at some scorpion cuticle. Now all scorpions fluoresce. It's one of the ways that you can actually see scorpions out in the desert is you can actually take a UV light and shine it on them and they will glow a bright green. And we still don't really know what the compound is that actually makes them glow this color. But if you look down into this little cuvette, you can see that there's a nice little green emanating from it. So I'm going to hit collect, and let's just see what the fluorescence spectra from this scorpion is. See, there's very, very little fluorescence there, so I'm going to hit stop. And I can see a series of peaks. But you remember, this is actually quite low, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the sample time. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to full spectrum. And I'm going to increase the sample time quite a bit. I'm going to say, let's take a look at about 800 milliseconds. What I'm doing when I'm changing that sample time is I'm telling the detector in the device to just gather much more light. Say gather light for at least 800 milliseconds. So now I'm going to hit collect. Let's discard that last run. It's going to take longer to collect a spectra. And there we go. Now you can see I've actually maxed out the detector. It's actually well over 1. So what I would need to do then is just adjust the sample time down a bit. But you can see we can actually see this fluorescence spectrum much better now. Instead of having a little teeny peak, we have a nice big peak. So I'm going to go back here. And let's change it to, how about 600? There we go. That's very nice. So if you look now across right here, you can see that this scorpion cuticle, the peak fluorescences, it's mostly right here in the green. And that's the color that a scorpion would look like if you hit it with the UV light. It would have this nice green color. Now there's many different compounds that are in scorpion cuticle that make it fluoresce this color, but I just wanted to show you that you can actually look at the fluorescence of other things. Now, I also talked about green fluorescent protein. Green fluorescent protein is a protein that was originally found in jellyfish that when hit with blue light, or in this case it also can be close to UV light at around 405 nanometers, it glows bright green. Why this compound is so important is because it can be used as a tracker to look at gene expression, to label different proteins, to even label cells in mice or bacteria. It's revolutionized how we do biology today. And you can actually demonstrate to your students that green fluorescent protein fluoresces just by taking it and placing an extract of it here into the cuvette holder. And you can already see it's glowing this nice blue color. It actually is glowing greenish blue, and we'll be able to see that when we collect a spectra. Now, what you may notice is that this is much brighter than anything else that I've put in here, so I'm probably going to have to dramatically reduce the sample time. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to decrease this back to 100. And then I'll hit OK, and then I'll hit collect. And there we go. So the peak from the green fluorescent protein is right here in the blue-green. You can see that there's this other fluorescence that's peaking up here. That's just actually from the purple LED that's actually shining through it. There's a little bit of scatter. But what we're really interested in is this nice bright green-blue peak. And once again, I could increase the sample time or decrease the sample time to show that peak. Now, if I wanted to get rid of this peak from the actual LED, there's a way to change that. I could just go back over here, go to mode, and I could say, well, you know, I don't really want to look at anything below where the LED is centered. And I know it's at 405, so why don't we just take a look at from about 415 nanometers to 900 nanometers instead. And I can hit OK. Let me hit collect. I'll discard that last run. And there we go. I've still got a little bit of it in there. Oh. See, I could cut it off at around 450. So let's go back. And let's just say, no, I just want to look at things from around 460 bigger. So now I'm only going to be looking at wavelengths from 460 to 900. And once again, I'll hit collect. I'll hit discard. And there we go. And so we can see that this green fluorescent protein, its peak emission from its fluorescence is right at around 505 nanometers, which is, well, green. So if you have any other questions about fluorescence or about spectroscopy or about anything at Vernier, just visit our website at www.vernier.com.